I was trying to ask Corky if she's got a chance to see the Northern Lights in Hawaii tonight, or is that impossible?
That would be over the ocean. Wouldn't that be cool?
Oh, Lake Superior is cool enough.
I was wondering how far I'd have to drive in order to see them. Get any place dark enough. I can't even think of a place up I-75 that would be dark.
Go toward Lansing. Where was the dark park, Steve? It was Lansing and south. We went south on Lansing.
Yeah.
So there's a park. Look up Dark Park online, and you'll find that there is a place about an hour away. We were gonna go. We were gonna go watch. We just wanted to go see stars, and so we grabbed the grandkids and looked up dark parks, and we knew we couldn't get all the way up to Wilderness Point up at the top of the mitten. But oh, here's one in Lansing. And
Yeah.
we went to go there, and we're halfway there when we realized there's a full moon.
Oh,
Not a very dark part of that full moon.
Can't
Yeah.
see a whole lot.
well, and today is cloudy, so who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Corky's too far south for it, and there's a terrific storm coming where she is.
I bet they get some storms there. What else can it run into? We do want to hear whatever questions you've got, so you can put them into chat, and we'll take them one at a time as we roll through the chat. But the whole idea today is the more people who are talking about what's going on, the more people find out, as Steve and I have over the years of answering questions, all the things that could go that maybe you haven't seen yet, or sometimes solving some of those mysteries that you see that you wonder what's going on out here. And that's not number 5, March 29th, Janet.
It's number 5. You had that part right.
Yeah, it is number 5.
You got it.
It's our 5th Free-for-All Friday. And I think probably everybody here knows that we've written for a long time. We've gardened for 40 years, wrote for 30 years, and want to keep writing new stuff. So we've got the website where we put up things. We'll show you where some of the things that we're going to refer to today are on the website as we go along. And we're calling them free number 4 all Fridays from now on. I did change the page, Steve, but I haven't changed the link in here.
Okay.
And anybody that wants to come, if you want to tell somebody about it, or somebody has a question and you say, let's ask so-and-so, just let them know that on our Fridays page on our website, just on the website, if you've got the 3 little lines that mean menu, the menu will have Fridays, or your tab will have Fridays. Just click on Fridays and the link is there to join us. It's not March 29th. So there we go. We have some things that we have run into this week, questions we've gotten from people, and things that we have seen in our own garden or around the neighborhood. But let's start with what you've got. Got anything in chat, Stephen, that we should?
Elizabeth is asking, 3 years ago, my bee iris bloomed superlative, many bloom stalks about 3 to 4 foot high. The following year, only normal leaves size and number, but not one flower stalk. How come leaves coming again this spring? Bee iris, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, probably bearded iris. That'd be
bearded iris. Oh yeah.
Type in just bee, because who wants to type all those letters in?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Matter of fact, as I've gotten used to texting and talking to my phone, I'd like to be able to talk to the computer. I tried that the other day, and plant names don't come out very well when you talk to the computer. Are there more, Elizabeth? If you can talk, go. We can, if you'd like to talk and answer some questions without typing them in, just let us know. You can type yes, want to talk or something.
You can unmute yourself and talk.
Oh, actually, yes, we don't have to have you raise your hand because you can just unmute yourself. But are there more leaves, or less leaves than there were before? Because I think you probably have a borer problem. I think you're losing rhizome, the bottom part, the root part. I think you're probably losing rhizome to soft rot and or borers. And what's happening is your irises are getting too small and maybe too crowded in the pieces that are left to be able to have enough energy to do a bloom stalk. Let's see, do we have any pictures of that? Let's go to some question pages so we get something prettier to look at. I don't think right now on the screen that I can get to quickly we have pictures of it, but Michelle had asked recently about iris borer, and don't they just eat the root? Well, they start out on the leaves and eat their way down to the root, and then they eat in the root. They're a caterpillar, a gray, rubbery, little yucky looking caterpillar that turns into a moth in the fall. And where they damage the leaf, eating the leaf, and where they damage the root, eating the root, they allow in the spores of a bacterial rot called iris soft rot, and that destroys part of the rhizome. So this plant that should be getting bigger is actually getting smaller underground, and it's just like you're chopping up a daylily and putting only tiny pieces back in. They're going to take a couple years to get to be blooming size, but yours, if they keep getting attacked, are never going to get to blooming size.
Elizabeth does have her microphone on now.
Oh, okay. So what do you think, Elizabeth? Are there more leaves? Is it getting? Does the plant appear to be getting bigger?
It's a little early in the season. I don't expect the leaves to be very tall at this time.
No, not tall,
but I will go and
but number of leaves.
I don't know. They're not very many. They're not very many leaves, and they're just beginning to come in.
Yeah, I think
But
that
I should go and take a look.
Yep, you should dig some of them up and take a look. To bloom a bearded iris, the rhizome needs to be about twice my finger, and usually you need about 2 of them in a Y to be a big enough rhizome to support producing a flower stalk. If you pop up some of those and you've got just small pieces of root that are not even as big around as your thumb, for instance, then that's probably what's happening. Usually you can also find debris, what's left of an iris rhizome that rotted out. So you'll also find bits of debris. You won't find that nice, healthy looking, I could put this in my CRISPR drawer and pretend it's a vegetable look. So take a look.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Michelle has, I saw something strange on my Baptisia. Looks like something is eating a thin layer on the outside of the stems, turning them brown, maybe slugs. Never saw this before.
Slugs will scrape stems. Usually in the springtime, they're scraping the debris from last year off, and they're eating the fungus off of the old stuff. But I guess if you've got a lot of them, they could start scraping the stems of just about anything. To know if that's what it is, you really need to go out at night, which is a creepy thing to do, because if there's a lot of slugs, there's a lot of slugs. You could put a trap out for them. The best traps are this time of year. Actually, 2 weeks ago would have been better. But to put onto the soil, say, we use section of newspaper, but you could use a cardboard. Our friend Pauline used to use a board, and she just put a 2x4 down at the end of the bed. And then she'd come out in the afternoon and flip the board over, and there would be slugs hiding under there because they don't want to be out in the sun. And she'd squish them all. She had one long thumbnail. She said, "See why I keep my thumbnail long?" And she'd slice the slugs to kill them. And if you do some kind of a trap like that, and once a day during the sunny part of the day, flip it over and kill what you find. If it's newspaper, a section of newspaper, I find I can flip over the section of newspaper, tear off the page with the slugs on it, throw that away in a securely sealed plastic bag, and start cutting the numbers down, because each one of those that gets well fed now is going to lay 40 eggs, and those 40 are going to mature sometime in June and lay 40 eggs each, and it just gets to be way too many. So it could be a combination of mulch and your moist soil that's causing you to have that many slugs. But Baptisia itself doesn't have any caterpillars or beetles that normally would scrape the stems.
Yeah. Michelle said she will take her salt water with me. One time I picked up 125 from her deck after the rain.
Oh.
Corky says ammonia for slugs with water 1 to 5.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of
Okay.
it, and you have to actually, and you can spray it on them. They kind of dissolve, I understand, when you use ammonia on them. Maybe their pH is such, but it's a cruel thing to do if you think about it, but it works.
Diane mentioned her irises did not bloom when they were only in about half sun.
Sure, when they get into a shady place or not a full sun place, they get that same problem. The rhizomes can't bulk up enough. They just stay small. It's kind of like some of the things that Steve and I have in our backyard shady garden. When we moved in, the whole backyard that wasn't lawn was ostrich fern and myrtle. And I dug all that out. And after I dug it out, things started appearing. They're not things that seeded themselves in, they're plants that were there and being suppressed by the shade of the trees and the shade of the ferns and the myrtle to where they were just remnants of themselves. And so then the leaves appeared, and now 3, 4, 5 years later, we're getting blooms on things that we didn't even know were in there and were suppressed. So yeah, get those irises out into full sun. The bearded irises belong in absolutely full sun and sandy if you can get it.
Corky on a different subject. Everything she's read, bougainvillea blooms are non-toxic to cats, but I'd like our opinion, expert input. Our cats love to grab them when they flutter across the can't read it, and it results in some mouthing.
Sure, yeah. So cats are weird, aren't they? They'll eat things even though they shouldn't eat it. I'm gonna get out my medical book. Cats being carnivores and us being omnivores, cats are more susceptible to some of the toxins than we are. So if it's toxic to us, it's going to be toxic to cats. So let's see if bougainvillea is listed in the AMA guide, American Medical Association Guide to Poisonous and Injurious Plants. It's a wonderful book. Mine's got flood damage, but I would refuse to get rid of it. And we shall look up bougainvillea and see if it's in here. They list everything, dermatitis, things that I hate some of them. When you read that monkshood, for instance, death often precedes medical attention. You don't want to see things like that. But a lot of them are things that are going to make you sick to your stomach, but not kill you. Go ahead, see if you can read the next one.
Okay, Greg Beal, a couple weeks ago, you discussed nicking bulbs for propagation. Where can I learn more about this, and will it work on Dutch iris? I'm not sure about nicking
I'm not
bulbs.
sure whether it'll work on nicking. You can find out about, how do you spell bougainvillea? B-O-U?
Oh, let's see how Corky spelled it, because you're asking the wrong. Bougain.
Yeah. Not even listed. Doesn't even make it into the book. So as far as I know, and this is the source that I use as my last resort, my tiebreaker and everything else. If it's in the American Medical Association's handbook of poisonous and injurious plants, then I'm going to read here. It's great references. It'll tell you what the symptoms are, what the toxin is, what the chemical is that's the toxic part, how to manage it. And this is for doctors, whether you're going to do stomachs, whether you're going to give an antidote, and then references. It's a very good book to have. So I don't think you probably have to worry about bougainvillea. Those cats, it's like our dogs. They eat stuff just so they can throw up. They feel better that way or something. Nicking bulbs in plant propagation books. Let's see. Probably the American Horticultural Society's book of plant propagation has it in it. Certainly our textbooks have it in it. I can't think of the name of the author that's a textbook on propagation, but what it is all of the true bulbs, and hyacinth is a true bulb, tulips are a true bulb, Dutch iris is a true bulb. They have a basal plate. So we have a picture of tulip bulb. Yeah.
Right, non-blooming tulips.
Right. So this tulip bulb, the stem is actually there. This basal plate, the bottom part of the bulb that grows the roots, that's the part that's actually the stem. This is pretty much really a leaf stalk growing up from it, and the leaves are the layers of the bulb. That stem, if you take a nick out of it, and it's literally just take a nick, you just take a very sharp knife and cut a little V out of someplace along the edge of this basal plate while the bulb is dormant, and then put it back in the ground. That damage to that basal plate causes the cells there to create meristematic tissue to seal over the damage, and that meristematic tissue, being in the dark and the moist, will then make roots and its own bulb. And then you got more bulbs. That's where we were showing that where I nicked one of 3 hyacinths that I put in the ground, we now have 2 single irises and 1 triple iris, not iris, hyacinth. Hyacinth. The problem with Dutch iris is that the bulb is very tiny, so you're going to need to have a very sharp little knife and have good eyes to see that the thickened part around the bottom of the bulb. But it's there on these tulip bulbs, and it'll be there on the rest of them too.
Okay. Julie and Fran are seeing 4-line plant bug
Yeah.
on our native plants. They don't kill the plant, but make them look ugly. We squash them, but hard to keep up with. Anything else you would suggest we should do? Hire kids.
That's what we did. I was looking to try to get the pattern of where were the 4-line plant bugs emerging from first, because they overwinter as eggs laid on usually the more lasting plants. So woody shrubs near your perennial garden, or things like your sage or lavender, the mint family, that's a woody plant. They'll lay their eggs on there and emerge from there and start eating other plants. We asked our kids, we said, okay, here's what we're looking. We showed them what 4-line plant bug nymph looked like. They're little red when they're young, reddy orange. And we sent them out there, the 2 of them, and we were going to pay them for each one they caught.
Yeah, we started at a penny a piece.
Yeah.
And they negotiated up to a nickel, then it got expensive.
Yeah, but the first day after they were going to look for them, I came home from work and I said, okay, tell me where you found them. And we were standing on the roof of the house. I'm expecting they're going to point to me where they found them. And they didn't point anywhere. They said, sunny side of the plant after 2 o'clock. I said, what? Well, it turns out the 2 of them are vying for how many they can catch. And they get on 2 sides of the plant, and they notice that it's only on the sunny side, and it wasn't in the morning. They came out in the afternoon. And so we did that until we started seeing a couple of adults. And at that point, mixed up some soap and water. What were we using? 2 tablespoons of soap in a gallon of water.
Yeah, it wasn't very much.
Yeah, like a dish soap. And while the 4-line plant bugs are still the red-orange nymphs, they don't have wings yet, so their body's not covered. And that means that the soap makes contact with them. And soap kills insects by basically giving them a severe case of dishpan hands. It dries their exoskeleton out and cracks it. And their exoskeleton is their support system. It's their bones. So it's another awful way to die, but it does work. And you've got to make sure to get it on the insects. So you're going to wait until the afternoon when it's sunny, when they're up on the plant, not hiding down in the debris. But usually they run a course where you'll have a bunch of them for a year, and then the predators catch up with them. The predators that eat them, and there's a lot of birds that eat them. A lot of toads eat them. Garter snakes eat them. Earwigs eat them. Lots of things eat them. And when there's a big bunch of them in a given year, your predators multiply too, and the next year they wipe them out early on in the year. So try to keep up with them right now, and resort to water and soap if you have to. Murphy's oil soap works. So does Dawn dish soap, or any of those that has emulsifier in it, so it'll break up in the water really well.
Okay. See, Herman, leaf damage on lilies. Squish some orange-red beetles lurking on plants. Other suggestions? Lily leaf beetle.
Lily leaf beetle, yep.
It may be too late. I don't know how far advanced they are, but you just go out and continue squishing them, and then we make sure to clean up well after. Janet could probably describe that better than I can.
Yeah, I've been patrolling like every other day, going out and squishing all of the adults that I can find. But they are mating and they're laying eggs, little orange dots on the leaves, underside of the leaves, on the stems, even on the flowers. And what you want to do is knock those eggs off on the ground, let the predators in the soil eat them. But what I decided to do last year, because you're not going to get them all, and the young, the immature state of this beetle, we normally would call a grub. This one looks like a slug, and it coats itself with its own excrement. So they're these black, gooey things that you don't even want to touch later on. So you don't want to deal with that next group. They're going to mature and then drop into the soil, and they'll pupate over the winter and come back out again in the spring. So I don't want any of those slugs. I want to get fewer and fewer of the adults coming out of the soil. So what we did last year is, as soon as, right about now, the fritillaria is what we
Yep.
have in our yard. The fritillaria flowers are now withering. The green is still there, the plant is still there, but the plant's not flowering anymore. So last year I just cut them off at ground level. I denied food to the pest. And we had far fewer lily leaf beetles this year because we cut the population down in the middle of its growing for the next year. You can do that with lilies too, and I did that with the true lilium. That's what these lily leaf beetles eat: lilies, true lilies, and fritillarias. At my son's house, we have some lilies for the kids, and I was not going to mess with those larvae, so I cut the lilies off too. And at that point they had slugs on them, but I cut them off and threw the whole thing away, left nothing, cut them right off at ground level. Now those lilies are probably going to take 2 or 3 years to come back to blooming size, but I'm not one to want to fight with an insect. I'd rather beat it at its own game, and then I can put in new plants when I think I've got the numbers beat down. Pain in the butt.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah. Judith is asking about seed starting. It's quite a comprehensive question about trying to play with seeds, to which to start in light and which to do in dark, and some packets are remarkably uninformative about light and dark. What's the book that you've got?
We recommended Parks' Success with Seeds, and we're still sticking with that one. Here, Parks, where are you?
You had it out at a recent.
Oh yeah, got it.
Okay.
Parks' Success with Seeds. There really is just nothing better than Parks' Success with Seeds. It's out of print, but that doesn't matter because there's like a million of them floating around. You can find it at used bookstores all the time. It has in it for each of your plants that you want to grow, it's going to tell you the temperature of the soil, how long it's going to take them to germinate. It's going to show you in a little inset picture what the first seed leaves look like, so that you know whether your seeds are coming up or whether it's a weed if you direct sow them outside. So Park Success with Seeds is really what you want to have. I lived with that book for years until Steve made me move out of the house. I was starting so many flats of things early in the year, and I only had just so much room in the cold frame that we built outside, which I turned into a what do they call it? A hotbed, by putting a warming cable in the sand underneath the plants. I had so many things started that the whole front window was full of flats of plants, and then I'd bring them in when it got too cold at night. I'd bring them out of the cold frame and put them all over the kitchen counters and the tables. And he said, "That's it, get this stuff out of here." It's just such fun
But
stuff.
it's very cool to experiment with seeds. I did that while I was getting my horticulture degree. I had to scour some seeds. I had to use acid. I had to drill. I tried all different methods. And that was the fun part, to experiment and see what really does work when you have a lot of seeds that you could play with.
He started a bunch of ornamental grasses for me that I couldn't get anywhere else. In the long story of the ornamental grasses that Steve started, I ended up stealing some tuber grass from a botanical garden because he started me this grass that's so cute. It is just beautiful, but there's only one grower I could find, a wholesaler in Canada, and I couldn't convince any of the nurseries around here to order it in. But I found it at a botanical garden, and knowing how it grows, I know it's got a tuber down there, a bunch of little tubers, and I can just get one tuber out of there if the soil is loose. But yeah, Steve started all kinds of cool stuff for us from seed, things that were very difficult to do. I'm in Steve's textbook, his propagation textbook from college, and it's called Plant Propagation Principles and Practices. I'm not in the index right away finding hyacinth or nicking the bulb, but I'm just about positive that it's in here.
Any idea of a plant that 4-line plant bug may not damage?
Well, they like the whole, boy, I did an inventory one year, was walking through the garden, marking what they ate. And they definitely eat the anemone family, the mint family, the aster family. And that's like 75% of most people's gardens is going to be encompassed there. So a lot of things. They don't seem to attack lily family. So I can't remember ever seeing 4-line plant damage on daylilies, hostas, true lilies. Have I seen it not on iris? So maybe they don't eat the monocots then, the ones that come up with one leaf to start with, in which case they wouldn't eat grasses. But otherwise they'll move on a lot of stuff. But they do like the mint family first, and if you can catch them on the ones they like the most, the sage, the oregano, the bee balm, lavender, the damage doesn't show up quite so bad because the leaf is so little. What else? I never saw them eating hellebores, but maybe somebody can let us know. Somebody's got a bad problem with them this year can say, okay, here's
Michelle says the black-eyed Susan, she thinks they don't eat.
I have.
I think that's what she's replying to in the chat.
Yeah. Elizabeth, I think put into the chat that she's checked the bulbs on her bearded iris and there don't appear to be any rot there. There probably won't be any rot this time of year because the temperature of the soil isn't right for it. And there won't be any worms in the roots now because they're very tiny and they're either eating their way toward the crown and the leaves, depending on how advanced your season is, or they're on the leaves, usually between the folds in the leaves. Iris leaves are they come up in a fan, right? But each leaf is actually a folded, it's got a side that's the fold side and the side that opens up. And usually they're in there inside, and they're quite tiny to begin with. They get bigger as they work down the leaf. But if the roots are small, then that's something of an issue. I'm forgetting to change the pictures here. We should go to something that was asked. Tanya might be here and was asking about where this plant belongs. She said, I moved into a condo. This sounds like another one of the big problem areas. You move into a condo and suddenly you're not in control of your garden, right? She said, we have a big pond at the condominium association and they planted cardinal flower and feather reed grass all around the edge of the pond. And now the pond level is really high and those things are sitting in water. Is all of our expense for putting cardinal flower and feather reed grass going to go to waste because these things are sitting in the water? Looking up in the New Royal Horticultural Society Dictionary of Gardening or any of the plant encyclopedias that are dull and dry and tell you the name of the plant and where it originated and whatever, says that calamagrostis or feather reed grass is a native of marshland, fen, and wet woodland. And they can thrive on permanently damp soils and even stuff that's flooded. So your feather reed grass is probably okay. Cardinal flower can handle, we put it in rain gardens all the time. Cardinal flower can handle being flooded for a day or two, but it's not during the winter. Really important that it's not flooded in the winter, that'll kill it. So you're probably going to see some of them coming up. Cardinal flower starts later in the spring than feather reed grass, so you may not be seeing it coming up yet, not until things get warmer. Don't you love what people do to plants? I was surprised when I was down in South Carolina at the nurseries. I was asking, so are you selling Amsonia, Blue Star? Oh, no, it doesn't grow here. And I thought, doesn't grow here. Well, I looked on the plants.usda.gov is the USDA's site that lists all the plants that are grown native and naturalized in the United States and North America. And if you put the plant in, so I put in Amsonia tabernae montata, that's the willow-leafed blue star that a lot of us grow, or eastern blue star is the common name they have here. There's a map, and when if you want, you can click on the map to see the county. So it told me that it is native in South Carolina. It had South Carolina greened out. I clicked to say, zoom me and show me the counties, and the county that I was in is green, which means it's native there. And yet the nurseries were saying that it wouldn't grow there. That's Blue Star. That's Amsonia tabernae montana right now, today. Isn't it gorgeous? Such a pretty plant. And I think it's one of those plants that, because it's native and it grows by itself along the side of the road, people look down on it. One of our friends is growing, oh, Steve, what do we call it? It was Julia's growing it. Dog fennel. Dog fennel is this tall, the leaves look a lot like this, even finer. Dog fennel in Bloomfield Hills in Michigan. And it's not supposed to be hardy here, but she's protecting it in special ways, and she's really proud of this dog fennel. Well, dog fennel down in the Carolinas it lines the side of the road like Phragmites does here. It's just, why would you want to grow it? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. There's Amsonias of different colors too that we saw at when I was down at Belle Isle at
yeah, there's darker blues and lighter
the
blues.
darker blues, but they really are nice plants.
And shorter. And then there's the finer leafed one that takes a little longer to bulk up. I find if you're growing Amsonia and you're saying, but it seeds itself around, because it does seed itself around, after it blooms, the stems are going to keep growing up over the flower stalk, the seed pods, and hide the seed pods on the inside. So right after it blooms, if you just shear the top of it, which takes all of the seed pods off, you'll still have it come up to its full height. It'll still get its fall color, but you'll have removed most of the seed. So you may want to do that if you don't want to let it just totally naturalize and seed itself around.
Yep. Ruth has a question. I'm growing ground cherries this year. I heard they are perennial. Then I researched perennial in zone 8, and don't like below 55 degrees. Can I overwinter them in a garage since she thinks they're in zone 6?
You might be able to overwinter them in the garage. You might even be able to overwinter them like Julia's doing her dog fennel by putting a bale of straw on top of them and actually making them artificially deeper in the soil. Because we've done the same thing. We've dug pits 18 inches deep and buried canna bulbs and elephant ear bulbs. We're putting them in a root cellar that way. Ground cherry. Now, I'm not sure. There is a ground cherry that I know that is a terrible weed. It's a real runner underground, and it's native here. I'm not sure that we're talking about the same plant, because one of them is perfectly hardy here. It must be a different kind of.
That's the problem with common names. It's hard.
This is
Ruth has her microphone on.
I hear Ruth. Yep.
This is a little, I believe it's related to the tomato plant. It produces a cherry, like a tiny berry on it that's yellow, and like a quince, I think they say. And you can make jellies and things with the berry. That's as much as I know on it.
So you don't know what the plant looks like, because the ground cherry that I know is it's not a woody plant. It's more like the others in its family, the purple nightshade, and what else is it's a lax climber. It'll climb quite a ways in 1 year, but then it dies back to the ground and comes back up again. And I think if we can get the botanical name of it and look it up, I think it might be hardy, that maybe your reference is not aware of it growing in a hardier place, in a colder place.
That sounds great. Your ideas are super. If I can get a scientific name on it, I'll put it into text. This has been great, though.
Okay, great.
Nancy has a hand raised.
Go ahead, Nancy.
I have two questions, and they're basically related to each other. The first one is, I was trimming a forsythia bush, and I believe it was totally infested with gall, forsythia gall.
Yeah. Well, you want its crown, it's bacterial crown gall, same thing that Euonymus gets.
Okay. So it is also related to euonymus and rose gall.
Yeah, well, rose has a couple of galls that it gets, but rose can also get euonymus gall. And I have seen where a service came in and did the pruning for someone, and they pruned euonymus with head shears on a wet day, and then proceeded to use the same head shears to prune forsythia and the roses. And you could see the line of galls that had formed all along the point. So because it's bacterial, moist conditions are great, and open wounds are great for spreading it. So once it's in the plant, it is systemic in the plant. You can cut well below the gall in order to take it out and see whether or not the plant revives. The gall will tend to make it weak, and you'll see new galls forming if there's still gall in it. It's a terrible thing to have happen. It makes me feel really bad when I see it, because I think I must have done something wrong.
And I saw it, like I said, all over. And the person, I was cutting it for my brother and sister-in-law, and they would not let me cut it all the way down because it was a privacy. They used it as a privacy screen. So the question is, can I plan on then just incrementally over the next year or whatever, cutting branches down. Is it still gonna just stay weak and eventually die?
Well, they do eventually die, but eventually it takes a long time with the gall, because the plant keeps making more pieces. The problem with it is that if it's got gall and it's weak, if you cut it all the way down, the chances are that it's not going. Forsythia would normally grow back up 4 or 5 feet in a year, maybe more than that. But when it's weak, it's not going to grow up so quickly. So you are going to have to do it incrementally and just see how it goes. They grow so fast that if there's any way that you can layer something else in there, you could put a new plant in and let it start growing, kind of like we did with a tree at the library where we garden.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And I see a hand up from Greg, maybe. Physalis peruviana. Okay. Physalis are the
Yep.
ground cherries. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't see any hands, or there's no questions, so.
Oh, okay. Then
Unless I missed one, if I missed one, please let me know.
well, let us tell you about something that we got a question on.
Yep.
Steve, you can tell them a little bit about this that you found. I'll flip the pictures for you. What is
Yeah, we got a question about hydrangea leaf tire. It's a insect that ties the leaf together. And I'm thinking, well, let's see, where is that person? We had a rough idea where they were at, and I went to a garden that was nearby that we knew for sure that hydrangeas were there, and the person had already told us there was some. So I took some pictures of it. You can see they fold the leaf right together and seal it. It makes some pretty cool pictures. And then you can peel it apart. You could see where their spider webbing or glue or whatever they do.
their silk is? Do you know that if a spider was as big as a person, the silk would be strong enough to stop a jumbo jet taking off?
Spider-Man.
Yeah,
You know
Spider-Man is
that.
real. So and there are people that are looking to use other sources of silk than just the silk moth that's been raised in China. It's pretty much domesticated now. So that silk is pretty strong.
If you look down in the plant, I don't have the pointer. Go back.
Oh, go back. Okay.
If you look down in the plant, you see frass. Does anybody see the insect? You're going to have the picture of it later, right?
Yeah, the frass is excrement.
The black dots.
Insect excrement. They eat a lot, they poop a lot. And they're in there, they've knitted the leaves together, but they've knitted the leaves together around the growing point. So they're actually getting new leaves growing into their little enclosure all of the time.
And they make that enclosure bigger.
And there's the caterpillar. And that's quite a young one, Steve, on yours. This one's older.
Oh, yeah.
It's developed. But that's what they're doing inside there, is they're chewing away on the covered leaves. And they're quite easy to squish. As far as we know, I forgot to look that up. As far as we know, smooth hydrangea, which is the snowball white round hydrangea, is what they live on. They don't generally, you don't find them on the other hydrangeas, not on the blues and the pinks and the panicle hydrangeas or the oak leaf hydrangeas. But this is where Steve was, this is where you were collecting the damaged leaves from, right, Steve?
Yep. Yep. You could see white, any white spot, small white spots. Down at the bottom, there's 3 in a triangle. And up on the right, there's a couple. That's where they were putting the leaves together. The one big one was inside farther. But yeah, that's where they're just starting.
You're just starting to knit them together. And
that one's 3 leaves, two leaves, I mean.
yeah. And what you can do is just nip that tip off and destroy that caterpillar. You can see where Sue, whose house Steve was at, has clipped off the tops, because for the last 3 years, I think it's been, they've been appearing on her hydrangeas in fewer numbers each year, because they aren't around all the time. They're like a lot of other insects. I'm thinking about the brown one, the rose chafer. About every 20 years, there are rose chafers all over the place. And it's not like periodical cicadas. They don't stand. It's just that the numbers build up every once in a while. And when they build up, you see them for a while and then you don't see them at all. And that's kind of the way the hydrangea leaf tires are. You can kill them with an insecticide, but the insecticide has got to be given to the plant to absorb through the roots and the leaves so that the leaf becomes poisonous.
Toxic.
Yeah, toxic to the insect. And that means that you're making all parts of the plant toxic. And smooth hydrangea, the white snowball hydrangea, is a pollinator plant. Some varieties of it are really good pollinator plants. Wave Hill did a study on hydrangeas, and Steve and I are looking for one that it looks like it's going to be nearly impossible to find, but it was their #1 best smooth hydrangea pollinator. And we thought maybe we would get that. I see the Physalis name, the ground cherry, Physalis being the genus name for the ground cherries, and the one that looks like it's being grown is Physalis peruviana. Hey, Physalis. Oh, Physalis alkagengi, Chinese lantern. Ooh.
Oh, put the cross up for
Yeah.
Chinese.
Some of these guys are real weeds. Okay, ground cherry. They're all called ground cherry or husk tomato. They all have that bladder and a little seed inside, some of which are fruit are used in culinary work. Chinese lantern for decoration. Peruviana yields the dessert fruit known as the Cape gooseberry, not reliably hardy beyond areas that are frost-free. So, Physalis peruviana, nope, we're not going to be able to grow here. You're going to have to bring that inside. Let's see how far it says it is hardy to. Physalis peruviana, zone 8. So that's zone 8 is, it can't get below 0. If it gets below 0, 10, we're 20, 10, actually in that first, probably even below 5. So you're going to need to convince the plant that it's 18 inches underground where the soil doesn't freeze and it stays at 32 below the ice level, or you're going to have to bring it inside.
That's perfect, guys. Thank you so much.
Okay, Luann says she's got a hydrangea with darker looking leaf tips and they're knitted together. It's possible that the leaf tires were in there before there was a cold period and the leaves got damaged, but not inside. Inside, that caterpillar is still eating a growing point that's not damaged, and that could have darkened the leaves for you. We've got some cold damage going on in different plants. So this is kiwi vine, hardy kiwi vine. We're not growing it for fruit. We're growing it for these leaves. The leaves will have white and sometimes white and pink on them. They can be quite decorative until the middle of summer when they turn all green. But the only parts that turn white or white and pink are the mature branches of the kiwi vine. The new stuff, like the new stuff on a wisteria, is just going to have leaves that first year. And this year, these leafed out wonderfully, and then they got their leaves killed back. See the brown bits hanging here? And they lost the tips of the branches. So the parts that could bloom and turn the white and pink have been nipped back but there's still a little bloom, and I'm glad there's a little bloom because they are so fragrant and just so beautiful. You have to get under them to look up into them. They hang down from the branches. But that was that night it went down to 25 2 weeks ago. No, end of April, maybe April 25th or so, it went down to 25 degrees. And that was enough cold to cause damage. Some things, because the winter was so mild, this is cabbage that lived through the winter. It was supposed to be ahead last year and didn't get harvested, and now it's about close to 5 feet tall and blooming yellow. It's very pretty. Mustard family plant with the 4 petals on it. But other things couldn't handle it. They leafed out early. So the yellowwood tree, which is native to just about here, lower Michigan, it leafed out and then got killed back. You can see the brown where the tips got killed back. And that was 3 weeks ago. Now it's leafing out new again. It's got enough energy that it's just pushing out new leaves, but it won't bloom this year because it had the oldest growth, the first stuff to come out, killed back. Sad, but true. I noticed when I looked close at this picture, see the webbing? Yeah, there might be some spider mites working in here on this tree, which would cause, see the darkness? Which would cause some honeydew to build up. And that's interesting. Not that I'm worried about it. There's insects of all kinds out there. And what do we think the chickadees and the nuthatches are doing but hopping up and down branches, grabbing these little guys?
Yeah. Carol has been picking off the beetle on the
Lily
leaf tires on the hydrangea. She just goes out every couple of days. She's gotten 50 a little while ago and 25 the other day. Michelle was wondering, does that take the flower off? No, it shouldn't, because
not on the snow, not on the smooth hydrangea. They bloom on new wood, and you can cut those back until you can probably cut them back until the end of May, and they're still going to bloom. Though you'll just delay the bloom a little bit. You can that would essentially be pinching your hydrangea. The blue and the pink hydrangeas, yeah, that would, taking the tips out would probably negate any chance for bloom this year, but they don't appear to bother those guys. I should look that up. I didn't confirm that. I did want to talk about staking. With all this water, things are coming up out of the ground fast. This was almost 4 weeks ago. The peonies were coming up and there was no cage left to go around them, and I hate it when peonies flop just as soon as they open and get mashed down by the rain. So we trimmed a red twig dogwood in the backyard. So we take the red twig dogwood and stick crutches around the plant. So there's just a line of about 6 red twig dogwood branches jammed into the ground with the crutches up, and as this peony grows, it's going to put itself into the crutches. I don't have a picture of it today, but today it's up here. And all you see is just the tips of the red twig sticking out, and in no time at all, it will cover it completely. Just this weekend, on Sunday, I was at my friend Teresa's house, and she said, I didn't get a hoop on this peony. What are we going to do? I said, well, we had just pruned the purple leaf cherry tree in the front yard. So we had a bunch of sticks. All we had to do was pull the leaves off of them, and we've put them in around the outside. If your peony's already beginning to flop, or in my case, I've got lovage, and what's the other one, Steve, out there, the great big one that flops on everything? Cup plant, that I was determined I was going to stake this year. If they're already beginning to bend outward, you can just take some soft rope and give them a belt temporarily, tie them in tight, put your sticks in, and then take the rope off and let the plant relax into the sticks. But it works really well to do it that way, and nobody notices that they're there. A lot easier and less expensive than putting your standard purchase things in here. There's pictures of that in what's coming up 177, and we find most of these things when we're stoking our own computers for what problems might there be going on right now, and we add those to things that people have asked us about this week. What we do is we go to What's Up, which is our news, and at the bottom of the What's Up menu, you have to be on the What's Up page and then open the menu, or if you're on a computer like this, the menu will be on the side. If you click on Ensemble Editions, if you just go to early spring, these are all the newsletters that we've released in early spring, which for us would be middle of April to middle of May. middle of March to middle of April.
Yeah, we're in spring
We're in
now.
spring now, but this one, the staking one happens to be before things start
Yeah.
growing. And you can go there and click on something about clay soil, figuring out what your plants are, ways to stake. If you click on those, it takes you to the article that'll show you pictures like we're showing you here. So it's one way to find timely stuff right now. I think
Deb is asking, I have what looks like powdery mildew on my 9-bark. Anything we can recommend?
yes, get some air moving there. Your best bet with mildew prevention is controlling mildew is preventing it. So if you see anything that looks like mildew, take that off now. Take the leaves off or cut the branches out. Most of the time on the plants that get mildew pretty badly, the better health, the more healthy they are, whatever it is that they need most themselves, the less mildew they get. So for instance, this is Verbena hostata hori vervain, and it's got over here next to the driveway where it put itself, it's growing right on the edge of the bed at the driveway, and I let it come up. There's no mildew on it, but those that are in the shade off to the side, even though there's lots of space for air to move, like there is air to move down the driveway, they've got mildew. Bee balm gets mildew, peonies get mildew. And if you can increase on bee balm, increase the moisture, so keep the soil always moist, which is counterintuitive. People tell you don't water the leaves, you get more mildew. But watering the soil and making the bee balm stay moist all the time, you get less mildew on it.
They were asking about 9-bark.
Right. And on a 9-bark is going to be healthiest when it's got plenty of water, because they're native along the edges of streams. They are constantly, their roots constantly have access to water, not flooded, but water is always available to them. And they're at the edge of the stream where air moves. So if you can thin out a 9-bark and make sure that it gets good water, you're going to see less mildew on it. Also, you want to grow it in the sun. They don't grow in a forest in the stream. They grow in the kind of streams that beavers inhabit, right, Steve? Where they
opened it up.
Yeah, they've opened it all up, and there's lots of sun. So you might have to fight mildew all the time on a 9-bark if you've got it in the shade or in the dry, or you are pinching it so it's real bushy, real twiggy. What else can you do? You can use wilt proof or baking soda and water with a little bit of soap to help make it stick. It's a preventive. It's not going to cure fungus, but if I spray it on the leaf, it forms a coating that fungus spores can't really attach to. If you use baking soda and water, it was 4 tablespoons of baking soda in a gallon of water that we used to use, and then we put in like a teaspoon of soap to help make it stick. If you use that, it's going to rinse off every time there's a heavy rain, so you've got to go put it on again. Our daughter Sonia used to use it on the roses all the time for black spot. If you use wilt proof, which is hard to find this time of year because people think you use it only in the fall, wilt proof also forms a waxy layer on the leaf and it helps keep fungus from being able to attach itself. That was studied in the desert Southwest in North America and in Israel on farms. They were looking at using wilt proof during the growing season to keep plants from losing so much moisture, and found that they also got less mildew. So you might want to try one of those. I don't recommend that you try a fungicide because you're just stepping into a never-ending cycle if you have to be using a fungicide on something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Diane said she's just south of Toledo and had rain constantly every other day for 2 months. The yard is saturated, never dries out, and more rain in the forecast. I have not been able to plant my beautiful potted Easter tulips bulbs because it's too mucky. Can I save them for later? What could I do?
Yeah, you can definitely save them for later. I mean, it's just like the pot. I have plants that I bought at the nursery because I finally just got to where I can't handle this anymore. They're going to be gone when I get there. I'm not going to put those in the ground yet. I'm just going to keep treating them as potted plants as they are potted plants. and I'll put them in the ground when I'm pretty sure that they're not going to get nipped back by a 40-degree night. Your Easter bulbs you can hang on to the same way, and if you wanted to, you could probably keep them through the summer and plant them in the fall, but it's easier to let the ground hold on to them for you. There was a reason that I pulled out the tulips. Oh, because of the question that we got about tulips being small and not blooming anymore. This is the bulb of a tulip that's been in the ground 1 year. It was planted last fall, and it is a tall, fringed edged, what they call parrot type tulip, a tall, late blooming parrot type tulip. Its original bulb, you can see the size of it. It's now making its bulb for next year. And can you see that they're much smaller? The later blooming, taller tulips are almost to a man, to a variety, not going to be a good perennial in our part of the world. We can't give them a dry enough, hot enough summer for the bulb to rest and bulk up into a big size. Instead, it splits up into lots of little bulbs, all too small to bloom. So these little bulbs become a cluster. Sometimes you'll dig up a bunch of tulips, and what you planted one tulip 1 year or 2 years ago, and you dig up 20 little tiny bulbs is all that's left. Here's one of the tall pink ones, and you might be able to see it broke away from the stem, but it's just a hazelnut sized bulb is all that's left. So if your Easter bulbs are the big tall tulips, they may not be worth the trouble of nursing them along until you can put them in the ground. There are a whole bunch of tulips that are reliably perennial in the colder zones. The Darwin, Triumph, Greggii, Kaufmannianas,
Speciosa?
and the species, a lot of the species tulips like the Tarda tulip and the what's the one that's yellow, and there's a multi-flowered one that's yellow, and Turkistanica. There are a lot of species tulips, but of the bigger tulips, you're better, and they are big tulips. Darwin tulips, there are a couple of types called Red Emperor, Yellow Emperor. They're tall tulips, but they're not late blooming. The Greggii tulips are gorgeous, great big maroon striped leaves on them. They're kind of low to the ground. They're maybe half the height of the tall ones, but big, beautiful colors. And they're all reliable, so you might want to go with those rather than fighting with trying to get tulips to bloom. There is one parrot type tulip that's real reliable. It's pink, it's white, pink. Angelique and Toronto are two multi-flowered, taller, slightly later bulbs that you can try, but not worth fighting with them, I don't think. Let's see. Someone asked about Lily of the Valley the last time we were together. And there's the Lily of the Valley root. This is a Lily of the Valley seedling. This one right here must have come from seed and hidden underneath a bleeding heart last year and in the fall, and now it has done this, created 2 more plants. I know that I got it all. Those are clean tips. There's no breaks in the roots. I loosened the whole area and took the whole thing out because I am not going to fight with Lily of the Valley trying to muscle its way between and through the plants that belong in that area. So weeding well this time of year, I come chortling into the house with a couple of little, I said I found only 3 pieces of bindweed, Steve. That doesn't mean that it's gone, but 3 pieces of bindweed, and I took the piece that had come up and 6 inches of root I managed to get out. I go, I'm ahead of the game. And it is a game for me. Should you cut the 9 bark down to the ground to get rid of the currant mildew? No. Give it some air. If it's bad, if you don't like the looks of it, cut out some of the stems, which is okay to do. We were talking about pruning viburnum. This is a viburnum, Korean spice viburnum, Viburnum carlesii, blooming 2 weeks ago. It's finished blooming now, and we want to keep it this size, which is 5 feet tall. We don't want it to be 8 to 10 feet tall. So after it blooms, now, this was yesterday, it was Wednesday, so 2 days ago, I can see that it's trying to stretch itself up. We want to keep it down here and it's trying to get taller and it's quite thick. And your 9-bark might be the same way. It gets a lot of foliage on the inside. So every year I'm going to take a trunk out. We took this trunk out, this big guy right here, we took out. And that's going to encourage more smaller stems like this one and more room for air to move through the plant. So Connie's just helped me saw that one branch out of there. You can see through the plant here, which is not a problem. All of that little growth from down below, we took that, that's the base of the big branch that we took out, and then Connie's holding the whole thing. Diane's got part of it and Connie's got the rest.
Mhm.
So all this little stuff down here then can grow, and it has good air flow to grow through. It doesn't become a place where mildew builds up. So on your 9-bark, you might want to do the same thing. I certainly do that for some clients. After it blooms in the summertime, June sometimes it usually blooms, I just go in and find an old one of the thicker stems and take it out, and then thin out everything else that I can thin out to keep it smaller, and that lets air move through it. So it looked like this, and after we got that one big branch out, then we went up to the tips, and those branches that were out beyond the frame that we wanted to use, we cut back to within the frame so that they can grow. This branch right here can grow for a year or so before it breaks the limit that we give it. So it ends up looking like this, and yes, I can see through part of it for about 3 weeks. Everything's going to fluff out into that area. So maybe thin out your 9-bark. You don't want to cut it all the way back. Oh, leaf miner. Shoot, I forgot to answer.
8 o'clock, kid.
Is it 8 o'clock? Okay, then
Yep.
I guess we better wrap it up. Wow. I'll look through the chat. We'll see what 9-bark is only 3 years old and crowded is not an issue. Yeah, then some of these varieties of 9-bark that they've come out with recently might be more susceptible to mildew.
They don't test them enough.
They rush things
They
out
rush
to
them.
market because everybody wants to have the newest plant right now. So that's it for Free for All Friday number 5. We'll be back next week and have more topics for you to talk about that we've seen in our own garden. Bring yours to us or send them by email or text. Our phone number is in the website, so is our email address, and you're more than welcome to send us pictures so that we know what it is that you're talking about, or can show other people what it is that you're talking about. Diane asked about the leaf miner midge on boxwood, and I forgot to check whether the leaf miner midge is the same leaf miner that we deal with, and ours is not out of the leaf yet. It's still in the leaf. So I'm wondering if we're talking about the same thing. I'll have to get back to you on that, Diane. What else have we got? That's it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a great weekend. Try to see the Northern Lights tonight. I'm looking at
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm looking at partly.
Pretty clear right here.
Yeah, just a couple of fluffy clouds here and there. I'm hoping we can see them. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your garden. See you guys.
Ta-ta for now.